From the Vegas Golden Knights, this is SLGND. I'm Justin Russo. After a longer summer than they would have hoped for, the Golden Knights are rejuvenated and geared up for another run at the Stanley Cup this season. As with any year, there were changes this offseason, and as some Vegas regulars have departed, opportunity arises for those seeking a spot on this year's roster, or perhaps an expanded role from years past. With opening night fast approaching on October 9th, the entire SLGND gang is on hand to take stock of the preseason so far, who they have their eyes on to make the roster, and how the pieces to the lineup puzzle may fit into place for head coach Bruce Cassidy. Without further ado, here's Dave, Shane, Dan, and Gary.
So here we go, Season 8, Golden Knights. Hard to believe. Some days it seems like it's gone by fast. Sometimes it seems like it's gone by at a glacial pace. But here we are anyway, season number 8, and the Golden Knights are a week away from beginning yet another regular season. The entire crew, present and accounted for, Dave, Shane, Gary, Dan. As we sit here now, guys, in training camp, late stages of training camp, still a couple more games to go. We'll start with you, Shane. What's piqued your interest the most here? What have you liked as they've gone along here to approaching their 8th season in the league?
Well, I think the big thing when it's coming in is who's going to fill in the winger spots, right? Obviously some big change for the Golden Knights from last season to this season. And, that said, I've liked what they've brought in, and it's brought in internal competition, and that's what we've seen. We've seen some guys step up and have a good training camp and preseason, which is what it's for. The big questions, Tanner Pearson coming in on PTO, a guy with over 600 games. He's played well. Tanner Lazinski, kind of out of nowhere. For me, didn't know a lot about him, but he has looked good. I thought Brendan Bresson's gotten better as the preseason's gone along. Zach Aston Reese, another veteran player with a lot of games. And then, of course, Victor Olofsson, we haven't seen much of, but I've watched him in practice. Man, can he shoot the puck? Very excited if he can reignite chemistry he has with Jack Eichel, Alexander Holtz. We haven't seen much of as well. So those are kind of the names we're watching here. And I think it's going to come down to, there's still a few games preseason. At the end of this preseason, there's going to be some tough decisions to make. And, and Gary's talked about, as we've talked about, I think they're going to go 8D, 13 forwards, 2 goalies. Schmid, am I saying it right? Schmid.
He said Schmid.
Played well, but I think
Schmid.
That great depth goaltender looked great in preseason, certainly over the win over Colorado, and in his other performance only let in 1 goal, so in a game and a half. So solid from him. Great depth to that position. Samsonov looked good. Hill looks healthy. I'm excited about this year. I don't know about you guys. I know there's some key guys that we've known for a while gone, but that happens. I'm always of the business mind in this game, and I don't get tied a lot to players. It's more the evaluation and moving forward and trying to put the best team you can. And I think they've got a lot of options here. Certainly the key pieces on the back end and down the middle are there to build around with this team.
Sneaky good offseason for Von Karpen and the pro scouting staff of the Vegas Golden Knights. They're deeper in net to start the season than they were last year when you figure they're going to go Hill, Samsonov acquired, and Schmid also acquired. Deeper on the blue line when you think you've got 8D that are NHL ready, and now they've got Robert Hagg, who is going to play Haig. Gonna play. Dan just looked at me when I said it.
Well, that was the best pairing in the game.
Oh, there are 2 Hags?
We went with Haig. We confirmed it yesterday. He was Hag. I called his first American League goal years ago, and he was Hag. And then I think it was Kenny Albert who told us that in Philadelphia, our friends Keith Jones would call him Hag, and Brian Boucher would call him Haig.
On the same broadcast.
I think we should do that.
And so he's been Haig, and then our PR extraordinaire Garrett Calloway did say, we asked, and it's Haig.
So Haig and Haig were paired together.
And Robert Haig.
Office of
that's,
Haig and Haig.
That's Nick Haig's dad's name.
Is Robert.
Right. So Nick was saying, I'm playing with my dad tonight.
Oh, my heavens.
Spelled differently, of course.
So they add him. So now they go 9 deep. 9. He's played 234 NHL games. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then at the forward spot, which has been to me the most interesting part of camp, Shane just, Olofsson and Holtz, they're going to play in the top 9. Yeah. But then you've got, there's going to be a spot, the 12th forward, like the left wing on the 4th line, and their 13th forward. And you've got a whole bunch of players who stepped forward in the preseason game Tuesday in Colorado and had monster games. Zach Aston Reese with a pair of goals. Tanner Lazinski, goal and an assist. Brandon Brisson, his best game of the preseason. And Tanner Pearson goes out, does it again, gets another goal, and Jonas Ronbjerg has been steady all playoff. I mean, all preseason. So you've got a ton of. I'm there already.
Playoffs.
You've got it like at the level of competition.
So you've got lots of depth in net, lots of depth on the blue line, and lots of depth at the forward spot. And a lot of those signings are from the pro scouts doing a great job last year, making sure that Vegas could have a good offseason, even though they lost a lot of highlight guys from their Stanley Cup team.
Gary brings up a great point about the tightness of the competition thus far for those final forward spots. As he mentioned, on Tuesday, all the main players contributed, with the back-and-forth nature of the roster battle culminating in a goal from Tanner Lazinski, on cue from Dan and Gary's radio broadcast.
What we said coming in is there is a competition. Yeah. And a lot of the guys involved in that competition have had impressive days. Yeah. I mean, you can only do so much. I mean, you can only excel if you're in the game. If you're not playing, what can you do? Yeah. Like Zach Aston Reese, this is just his second preseason game. I'm sure he would like to have shown this kind of an effort in 4 preseason games, as Pearson has, as Lazinski has. Side of the net, speaking of Lazinski, down low with Aston Reese, and now Burke to the point for a Hague shot. Score! Rattled around in front, and the Knights have a 6-1 lead, and what do you know? It's Tanner Lazinski on cue. He's got the broadcast in his ear, I think.
Yeah, so this just continues to be fascinating.
And I'll put this competition into the unexpected category only from the respect that coming into this camp, we had those questions, as touched on, who will replace the big names? And you see the NHL guys like Olofsson, like Holtz. Never before in training camp have we seen this kind of competition for forward spots. With respect to Max Comtois, he was a PTO. He didn't jump off the page, of course, did not get a contract.
No.
This is the exact opposite, where you have a number of guys. Obviously, Tanner Pearson is the one who's on a PTO. Other guys are under contract, but you got two-way contracts, more about making the roster. So I think I was, coming into camp, most intrigued by how would Bruce put the different forward combinations together, what would click, what might take some time, what might he scrap. That, to me, has kind of been pushed off to a later point in time. What's been most exciting and intriguing is all of these guys who've made it a competition that I just did not expect that to be something that we would be leading our podcast with here in early October.
Well, and the other thing, just before you take it, Tomas Hertl.
Yeah.
Healthy and comfortable. Played one game, looked tremendous. This is a guy who fought off injury, came back, tough position last year. Hannafin, of course, those guys acquired, we saw Hannafin looked like he hadn't skipped a beat. He played terrific, healthy, came in. But for Hertl, I'm excited to see what he can do. I thought him and Jack Eichel were the best, too. Not bad for a couple of centermen. They've only played one preseason game, but they didn't look like they missed a beat.
Because we said the numbers, it's roughly 70 goals, right?
Yeah.
That they'd have to replace. Marchessault, Stevenson, and the Matteo. Give it, for the most part. Well, does that come... Right.
Healthy Hertl, healthy Stone.
Stone for a full season. Olofsson, maybe Holtz.
Dorofeev is going to score more goals.
Sorry.
He has had a tremendous camp.
Again, last night, didn't score, but his ability, his strength on the puck is astonishing to me. Not a big guy, but he is so hard to knock off the puck, and he wins puck battles for not a big guy. And then just his willingness to go to the hard areas. Just now, for a player like that, and even Mark Stone touched on it, I think we all talked to him, it's bringing that consistency. Like, he's shown he can do it. Now it's, can you do it consistently at this level?
And I wonder, Dave, you think about, if you're in Pavel Dorofeev's mind, you got a little bit of action in the playoffs, but you didn't stay in the lineup. And that has to sting. What do you do between the Dallas series last year coming into camp this year to make sure that you are not someone that Bruce can consider taking out?
What do you make of the defense pair, Shane, that they put together?
Oh, well, they've loaded up. Theo wanted to go back to the left side, right? His natural side, which there's some benefits to that. Some guys are just more comfortable, even though he's been on the right so long with McNabb, and they still have that in their back pocket, right? but I think it's very intriguing to put a pair of Alex Pietrangelo and Shea Theodore load up. But they can do that because they have Noah Hanifin, who's a top pair defenseman as well. They've got, three of those guys that can play in that position. And, that's something they were able to figure out last year, putting Nick Hague with Noah Hanifin, and how well that worked. Like Nick Hague, his game's developed to becoming a top 4 defenseman. With that reach, that size, he continues to get better at his mobility. And then Braden McNabb, who's kind of been in those minutes, now all of a sudden him and Zach Whiteclub, but then Ben Hutton and Caden Korzak. So I think all year, and I hated this when I played, but when you're watching from the outside, I think it makes the team better is that internal competition. You can't take a game off. Certainly, Pietrangelo, Theodore, Hanifin, they're okay. But I would say those other 3 guys, because you're going to carry 8D, every game's an audition, or every couple of you've got to keep that consistency level up. And I think that just, that's that type of internal competition we talk about that makes teams better.
Let me ask a question, Shane. Bruce Cassidy makes it a point. We'll see him at the end of a practice or a morning skate go and chat with a player. We know John Stevens is running around with his laptop. There's a lot of communication between the coaching staff and this group of defensemen. What would you want as a defenseman in this spot? You're competing, you think you've got a role, but you know that there's other guys there. What would you want that communication to be like?
Well, I wouldn't want it to be that you're not playing tonight. I used to hear that a lot. That was always the word. I'd always try to avoid the coach in those situations before a game. I just think it's about, and I think, communication's changed for coaches and players over the years. Certainly it's evolved a ton. But there's constant communication just about your game, what you need to continue to do. I think it's hammering home, not trying to overload players with a ton of knowledge. It's little things here and there. And, John Stevens, who runs the D, he's one of the most meticulous guys at watching video, breaking down. I think he spends his summer doing it, the off season, because hockey's on his mind all the time. He has a couple of boys who play. So I think it's just for them that constant communication of, what do you need? All right, remember to keep your feet moving when you go back for pucks. Don't get caught standing still. Your gaps, make sure they're on. Challenge, close quick. Different guys, different things, right? Obviously more offensive guys, there's going to be little keys there, but I don't think they overload, but it's just constant to see how they're feeling and, maybe just hammering home a couple of key points to make sure their game's at the top level they need to be.
A couple of things I thought of, Gary, about the defense core, and it slipped my mind. Nick Hague got hurt in the first game against Dallas. Not insignificant at all in that series, right? He misses the rest of the series. It was around this time last year Zach Whitecloud got hurt, right? Yeah. First preseason game in Denver, ironically enough. And he seemed to chase it all year, right? And then he's in and out of the lineup late. I wonder where Caden Korzak's mind is with all this, because he came in and played really well.
26 games, he was great.
Right? When Theodore was hurt. That's something I'm fascinated
health.
to see.
If we want to talk the number one thing this year, can they stay healthy?
They've been hammered 3 years in a row with injuries.
Yeah, so Caden Korzak will have to be patient to start. And then it will be interesting because Shane's right. You can't take a night off. And if someone struggles for, I don't know what.
It's not going to be one game, but there'll be
3-4 games, off games. And then you're probably going to get called into Bruce's office and it's going to be, we're going to give Ben a look tonight, or we're going to give Caden a look tonight. It's not forever, but it could be forever, right? You know that better than anyone. There's
those guys are sitting there waiting to get that opportunity, and they know, okay, now I got to go in and make sure I make it very hard for them to take me out.
Korzak, you talked to him on radio yesterday, Dan, right before the game in Colorado. He's put on some weight.
Yes,
doesn't feel
6-7 pounds.
Doesn't feel like it's affected his mobility at all, which is a terrific.
Which is good because his skating is his biggest asset.
That's exactly what he said. He said, "I feel just as comfortable. I don't think putting on those 6-7 pounds has impacted my skating, but I'm more confident in the corners now." And Bruce Cassidy recognized it as well. Those are the things he's growing into himself. You see that, we've seen it, Whitecloud and Hague a couple years ago, and now Korzak's at that point where you hit 22, 23, 24 years old, somewhere in there, where all of a sudden you start to fill out and you're not a prospect, you're not a kid anymore, you're a man.
Yeah, well, I think people miss the boat because he is a prospect in the sense that he's been a slow bake in the American League. He's going to play in the NHL in a mid-pairing role for a long, long time because of his skating.
Well, that blue line depth is certainly a good problem to have for Bruce Cassidy. And after Dan spoke with Caden Korzak on Tuesday about adding some of that muscle to his frame, he caught up with the head coach, who offered his own thoughts on the Knights' young defensemen and the internal competition amongst the D-corps as a whole.
There have been a couple of guys who will have played in all 4 preseason games, and that includes defenseman Caden Korzak. From where he was this point last year to where he is now, how has he grown?
Well, he played well for us when he went in last year. Whitey got hurt, if we remember, on this game, I think, to Colorado early, so it started right away, right, with the injuries. So him and Benton Hutton got a look early, and I liked his game last year. We had no hesitation putting him in. There's still parts of Corzy's game where if he could be, he needs to be assertive every time he's on the ice. He's not that 20-year-old anymore. I think he could push people even more. Then you don't want to get outside of your sort of where you're forcing things either. So there's always that fine line, and we have to respect that. So we're going to coach him up to just play good, solid hockey. But I think players just take time, and he's on a great track. He's played well in Henderson. He's come up here, been a reliable guy for us. So just keep building that consistency part. When your name's called to get in the lineup, then what happens with those guys is then they've got to keep their job by outplaying the guy that they're pitted against, so to speak. And right now we're fortunate to have 8 NHL defensemen, so we don't need that. But get your game in order, be the best you can be, so when you're called upon, you stay in the lineup.
Let's keep working our way backwards into the net with Hill and Samsonov.
Yeah.
Aiden Hill, he's talked a lot about it's been a couple of years now he's battled injury, but let's just look at last year where he had a hard time staying healthy. And I don't know what he's got a Pilates, some sort of machine now that whatever works, I could care less what you do. Yeah. He said the other day he'd like to play 50 to 55 games. He's never played 40. Can he, I guess it's to be determined, but I was telling you this, Shane, and I think I mentioned it on one of the games we did. He was mentally exhausted after games last year because that injury was always in the back of his head. Got to be a brutal way to play, especially as a goalie when you need your flexibility. So, boy, he'd give anything just to be able to get through it unscathed this year.
Well, he's going to have, it's similar to what we're talking about the defensive group, except it's with 2 guys, right? Both, I'm sure Samsonov wants to play 50 as well.
And he's coming off an interesting year.
He's coming off an interesting year, the same thing, but, for him, and we said that's a tough market to play in at any position, particularly goal in Toronto. That said, that's part of the gig, right? That's why these guys are paid to play, and it's part of being a professional athlete. But I believe it's going to be that same competition. I think it's great for Aiden Hill to be healthy. I want to see him with a clear mind and a healthy body, and can he play? He's never played that amount of games. Career high in wins last year, 19. This is a guy that wants to be a 30-win type player, but at the same time, I believe that same type of competition, because Samsonov's gonna want to do and prove the same for himself as Hill does.
It will be interesting for Aiden Hill. His name is in the conversation for Team Canada for the Four Nations face-off. Yeah. They're gonna name the roster. All the rosters are gonna be named on December 2nd.
I think that's motivation around the league for some good. Usually it takes a little bit to work in, but these top guys are going to be going.
Stone looked me square in the eye and say, I want to be on Team Canada. Alex Pietrangelo will be motivated to be there. Shea Theodore. Jack Eichel's already been named to Team USA. He's going to be there. William Karlsson will be with Sweden. Hannafin will be with Team USA. It will be fascinating to see for Aiden Hill. If he gets off to a good start, I'll put it to you, for a guy who's had injury issues, would it be better for him to have that 3-week break off, or is it better
you don't turn down playing for your
country? You don't turn it down, and it can be a fantastic experience for a player. But your favorite buddy Randy Carlyle said that in 2010, when
my favorite buddy.
when Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf went to play for Team Canada at the Olympics, they both got hurt. They both came back, and they had nothing left.
Let's put it this way, though. Aiden Hill just getting named to that roster.
Yeah.
The wonders it does for confidence that you can benefit. Will he be the starting goaltender too? They're going to carry 3. Yeah. So even just to be on that roster, I think you benefit from the confidence game, because that's still the most powerful thing any individual player has that they can bring to a team. When you're confident, everything works. So, yeah, we'll see how that all plays out.
I think that Aiden's brain, he believes, having won a Stanley Cup, he is one of the best goalies in the league, especially one of the best Canadian goalies in the National Hockey League.
You have to have that mindset.
And Dave, this will be the first Springsteen line we have on SLG&D this year.
Shane's eyes just rolled back into his head.
Right, but the line from Springsteen is, God have mercy on the man who doubts what he's sure of.
Really disguised as a song, Shane, by the way.
That's right. Yeah. Tunnel of Love album,
Tunnel of Love,
1987.
Is that you, baby?
Right? God have mercy on the man who doubts what he's sure of. You don't want any doubt to creep into Aiden Hill's mind. If he thinks he's one of the best goalies in the league, you don't want anything that would lead him to question whether, in fact, he actually is. And getting named to that roster very well could be something that's, something that boosts that.
Just before we leave this topic, this is how Aiden Hill is disrespected. Someone came up to me, someone in the know, in the business, came up to me in the broadcast booth in Colorado on Tuesday and said, "So is Samsonov's the number one in Vegas now?" I looked at him, I'm like, no. But I guess it's two things. Samsonov was the number one in Toronto. 24 wins last year, 27 wins the year before, and got that team into the playoffs in both those seasons. So he's considered a number one. They've got a 1A, a 1B, and Akira Schmid, who's going to play in Henderson. He was sent there this morning. Has played in the playoffs.
Yeah, 2 years ago took New Jersey.
Yeah, they are very deep in the net.
So there's not a chance they're going to go with these line combinations because we just jotted these down, but just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Barbashev, Eichel, and Olofsson. Howden, Hurdle, and Holtz. Move Holtz over to his strong side, right side. Dorofeev, Carlson, and Stone. Pearson, Waugh, Kolasar. That makes sense? They're not going to do
deep
that
to
now,
me,
but
yeah.
And so that's 12, and it's
Then you throw
who's the extra? Who's the 13th guy?
Yeah, then you have Ronberg, Lisinski, Brisson, and Aston Reese all banging on the door.
and Brisson the only one who can go down with no waivers.
Yeah. I would imagine that
And actually, Holtz is the other guy
Yes.
who could technically go down.
Yeah.
So
because he's played so much in the NHL.
He has
forget how young he is.
Important. It's going to go. He's going to get a look, right?
Yeah.
The last preseason games are going to be important, but even the first game, like how long is that to take a look at him? Because he is a young player. Scored 16 last year. High pick, high talent. How long does it take him to adjust? He's going to get opportunity, and that's the thing. We have yet to see Hurdle chemistry with anybody yet.
Yeah. I'll just throw in the thought that came to me with respect to the first Golden Knights season when the year began. Both Alex Tuck and Shea Theodore were sent to the American Hockey League. Yeah. Not because they believed they were going to stay there, but because just to maneuver the roster, they had to go there for just a few games, and then you're coming up. Who knows what happens between now and the start of the season. But if someone can go to the American League without having to pass through waivers, do the Knights use that to their advantage, even if it's not the long-term plan? Just a thought.
Caden Korzak would have to go through.
That's why they're carrying 8.
That's why they're carrying.
No,
8.
I think the 8 that we named earlier. That's pretty much locked in as far as I can tell.
Yeah. So that's a pretty couple, as we sit here now, a couple of exhibition games to go, both here at home.
Cross your fingers, because the way the preseason's gone this year around the league.
I know. Well,
let's talk about that.
Yeah, Board of Governors meetings yesterday, earlier in the week, I should say, in Manhattan, and some things were kicked around. And one of the things that has been kicked around is, should they shorten the preseason and lengthen the regular season? I would say yes to both, but I'm sure there's pros and cons to everything. So there's talk, right, you add 2 regular season games. There was a time they played 84 games, 2 years in a row, 92, 93, 93, 94. They did play 84. They never went back to it. I'd be all for trimming the exhibition. He says the guy who does 2 and bitches about it.
And this is the...
Could we trim it more?
This is where, to me, it benefits the NHL players to play less. These guys, it's not 20 years ago where they're coming to camp to get in shape. These guys are in elite condition, shape, ready to go. And, Bruce Cassidy said, what do you think the ideal number is for your top guys? I think at the high end, it's 3 games. What it takes away, though, is these guys we've seen, which has made Goodcamp, Lazinski, Pearson, Brisson, all these guys trying to make their mark in a short period. You take away those preseason games, makes it a little tougher. The evaluation period gets a little more critical on 1 or 2 games. But, yeah, for myself, selfishly, let's
Bruce
cut
was
the
saying the other
preseason
day,
games.
They used to play 12 exhibition games.
Yeah, well, Phil Esposito would climb out of his dump truck. He drove a dump truck all summer to hauling gravel in Sault Ste. Marie, right? Him and Tony they worked in a gravel pit, and then they drank beer all night, and then they might go for a skate on Sunday with a bunch of guys that lived in the Sioux, and then Phil would go to Boston, Tony would go to Chicago, and they'd get in shape in camp.
You mean they didn't show up in shape?
Team Canada in 1972 in the Summit Series, they used the games in Canada to get in shape. Right. They didn't start playing well till they got to Russia.
Now it's all protein shakes and electrolytes and whatever it is.
And science, right?
And
they're all wired up, measuring levels, and it's so. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And, I think the big thing, too, which is front and center right now, is the amount of injuries we're seeing here to key players in preseason. We saw it firsthand with Drew Doughty. Patrick Laine, last night or the other night, Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle, both injured.
Thomas Chabot.
It's just
Celebrini
got, yes. Yeah. So,
Well, Gary Bettman said on Tuesday that he wants to start talking about the next collective bargaining agreement January 1st, as early as January 1st. They have the current pact doesn't expire till the summer of 26, so they got about 18 months. He then said, I don't want to put any pressure on it, but we're in a really good place in our relationship with the PA. I think everyone would be really happy if we had this all wrapped up before my State of the Union address at the Stanley Cup final. So this will be part of it because this has to be bargained. So this will be fascinating. Will the players say we want to play less preseason, and will the league then say, well, if you want that, you got to give us something? Or will the league say, hey, we want to play more regular season games, and the players will say, oh, if you get that, you got to give us something else. Like, this is one time where it's good for everybody, from my perspective.
Is it good for Dave?
At the end of the day, let's get down to the important stuff. What's it mean to Dave?
So it'll be interesting to see if this is something that they can not have to haggle over and both say, this is the right way to go.
I'll just be happy not to live through another stoppage. Yeah.
You guys didn't do either of the up and backs.
Oh, thank the Lord above.
All right. Dan and I did them both.
No, I'm talking about stoppage overall, that they can get the CBA worked over.
Yes. No, I think that would be.
And I think they will. Their relationship's hasn't been better than it is now between the NHL and the PA.
Seems like since they brought in Marty Walsh.
Yeah, Marty Walsh.
Really good.
Well, Marty Walsh pounded the table about Arizona, and Gary Bettman responded. Right? So there's an example of Gary Bettman has always said this. The PA needs a strong leader. If they don't have a good leader, then they're not ready to negotiate. If they come into the room with a really good plan, we can get to work. If they come in and they're not prepared, and then they have to change course halfway through negotiations, it extends everything. It makes it fractious. And also Bettman is.
That's not a word.
Sorry, it is.
Yes.
Bettman is also an elite negotiator. If he sees weakness, he's going to try and take advantage of it. And you don't want one side. It's like anything. You want the negotiation. You want both sides to go away thinking, I got some and I lost some. And that's a win-win for everyone. If one side walks away and says, we just got the crap kicked out of us, that's not good. Then you got players in a bad mood for the next 6-7 years. No one wants that.
A couple of thoughts on the preseason, Shane. Is it? I don't know if it's ever this easy, but do you trim 2 and add 2? Could you play 4 exhibition games and 84 in the regular season? Is 4 enough?
I think so. As long as it isn't fractious, I think. Is that how I use it?
I don't know what that means either.
I think 4. It would have to go to 4 and 84. I think that would be the proper numbers, or I think 82 is still a lot. I really do, and I find it hard to believe players will want to add 2 more. But if you're going to take away preseason, the owners, they want their gates.
Well, and that's the other thing
That's
about
good
the
for players
preseason,
too.
right?
It raises,
Yeah, well, exactly.
raises
The gate-driven
hockey-related
league. Yeah,
revenue.
they understand that.
That is the other thing about the exhibition games. This here in Vegas is an anomaly.
Yes.
Right? The crowds. Some of these other buildings, I don't know how they make any money just to turn the lights on. There's nobody at these games in the preseason in some cities. So that would be the other part of it. The old follow the money. But
Well, and ticket prices are a little heavier in the regular season than preseason as well.
Yeah.
And then my other thought on this, guys, would be how the NHL training camp then transitions to American League training camp and then ECHL training camp. In the midst of it, players are sent back to their junior teams, etc. That the Golden Knights have an advantage in this, that Henderson is right down the road. So how many of the guys who played in the game in Colorado had already been sent to Henderson and then were called right back up? If you're, for example, the Tampa Bay Lightning and your team is in Florida and your American League team is in upstate New York, well, guess what? It doesn't work quite as well. So there's, I don't know if there's something to rearrange with how the American League camps work, but
I think you know what? Why don't they do all these rookie games? Why don't they make them bigger?
Yeah.
And do rookie, your junior, college, collegiate, and American League, do a 3 games there. Add those, so you have your 3 or 4 with your NHL type rosters, and you do another kind of those preseason games with those players where they play 2 or 3 and give them an opportunity against other teams that play in the big building.
And how about if you do go to 84 games, making sure you start by October 1st? The season is.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, maybe
a
they
good
should
point,
bring
yeah.
us. Do you think we get a chance to get
To the
in
Board of
negotiations?
Governors and us 4
Us
clowns
4
talking?
morons in there. I'll tell you.
Dave knows someone
sure-
who went to
I'm sure
Clown
that-
College. I
I
learned
do.
that today.
Clown College. You
Clown
don't hear that
College.
every
Somebody
day.
literally went
from
to
my
Clown
hometown.
College.
There's a lot of clowns in my hometown. This guy's not a clown, but yeah, Clown College.
Like the juggling pins and the
Well, he was in the circus. He was in
Ringley
Ringley
Brothers.
Brothers Circus. Yeah, we had the event for the first responders here at CNA on 1 October, and
had a
Gary
friend-
says, "Hey, there's a guy you went to high school with sitting over there."
I have to tell the story.
Go ahead.
What? We're in there.
I was trying to
We're glad handing, and
was
all
great
these
to meet
people are
everybody,
waving
yeah.
at me, and I'm all excited. Oh, they want to meet Gary Lawless, and I
That's not true.
waddle over there,
Nobody
and
says
I'm
that.
I'm giving you all the good words today, Shane. And I'm like,
waddling.
hi, I'm Gary, and they're like, yeah, where's Dave?
Yeah, we know.
I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, I went to high school with Dave Gosher. I'm like, well, find him yourself.
Yeah, you're on your own.
So the conversation was fractious.
fractious. It was a
Well
frac-
done, Shane.
Yeah.
There you go. Put Shane on the board.
Hence the guy that was 3 years behind me in high school.
Yeah.
And this guy went to Clown College and was in the circus. He's been on the fire department here for almost 30 years. Great guy.
Nice. I had a
Name's Ray
friend
LeClaire.
whose college roommate was a clown and apparently was a slob, and like you'd be looking for stuff in the room. And I never met the guy.
Like an
But
everyday clown in life?
But, well, I think both. And like you'd find, like, no joke, like the juggling pins like underneath the couch or something.
I'll tell you, good for that. I drove up to Lake Tahoe the past week, watched my son play, and go through Tonopah, where the Clown Motel is. I cannot believe people. Have you guys? You've never seen this thing? There's people that stay there.
Did you stop?
No,
No?
I'm
Take a peek?
like, oh, that is, yeah.
I love when the circus would come to town in Trenton, New Jersey, and the train station was only a few blocks from the arena, and they would parade all of the animals. So you had huge elephants walking through downtown Trenton, New Jersey. What? Everything would stop. Like people on their lunch break, you just stop whatever was going on, and it was like a parade with not just to get the animals in, but like everybody stopped to go and watch.
The other thing I remembered about when I was in Providence 100 years ago, the circus would come to town.
Yeah.
And it would take a good month to get the stench out of the building
yes.
because of the elephants and the
Shane
other
and I are from
animals.
small town. Circus never
Yeah.
came to Peterborough.
No, Nepo, I didn't have
No, you had your own circus day to day. Speaking of circuses, that's it for this circus.
Yeah.
All right, guys, so let's off we go. Regular season a week away, a couple of more preseason games, and the Golden Knights season 8 upon us here real soon. Talk to you next time on SLGND.
That was Dave, Shane, Dan, and Gary on Wednesday from City National Arena, taking us all the way from hockey to the circus. Before we leave you today, take a listen to Bruce Cassidy's comments to the media on Wednesday, after the Golden Knights further trimmed down their training camp roster. The head coach speaks on some of the roster battles that the guys touched on, his messaging to those on the bubble, and where certain players may fit in the regular season lineup.
How do things change for you now that more cuts have been made and you're closer and closer to what your roster is going to be?
Well, it's just a little bit of a different energy when you get your team together. You can sense it in the guys. They're in different groups, 3 groups to start. So they haven't played a lot together. So now they start to feel that training camp's kind of winding down. They're going to get their opportunity a little more now to play and get ready for the opener. So that's just what you sense. For coaches, it's good to be down to one group. I've enjoyed all parts of working with all the new people in the organization, the younger kids. I came from the American, spent a lot of time there. But, once you get down to your group, as I said, it's just closer to the start of the year, and that's what we're here for and preparing for.
I think it's 26 players now left here. What's the message to the final 3 or so that you're still fighting?
Well, they just got to keep doing what they're doing. Guys have played. We played a good game last night. I think every player in the lineup was ready to go. Thought our structure and details were good. Our second effort all over the ice, which the players are in charge of, right? That's where they can control, how we're evaluating them. I thought to a man, they all worked hard to play the right way, play for one another. And some individuals, the puck found them a little more than others, but I thought we all played well. We're playing well defensively against, I thought it was a good hockey team last night. Didn't have their full lineup. No one does right now, but so that's it. Keep going and don't worry about what's going on around you. I think players sometimes, they have a lot of free time, right? So they start thinking, well, this guy's not here. Who's hurt? Just play, and you got to keep opening eyes that way, and hopefully it works out for it at the end of the day when it comes to the final lineup.
Was that the first time you watched Brisson? It's like he just played.
I thought he was his best game he's played in a long time. There was a little bit of conversation with him along the way, like some other guys that are close, and the message, you're here to make a hockey team. And whether you played X amount of games last year or not, that's your approach. You have to be here. You got to beat people out of a job. So go out with that mindset. Don't overthink the game. You've been here now enough camps to know how we play, what we want our identity to be. So you got to be that guy, but play to your strengths too. And I thought he did a good job with both last night. He was on pucks. He did the things he was supposed to away from the puck, created offense with his skill set. So good on him, right? He's a guy competing for a spot. So that's what he needs to do to get into, once you have your foot in the door and you've kind of made it and established yourself, it's a little bit easier then to relax it. But right now, you've got to have that mindset. I need to beat somebody out. That's just the way he needs to approach every game, I think. And there's a lot of guys like that are not full-time guys. That, that's just, to me, the best way to sort of be at your best.
As you've kind of moved the puzzle pieces around to see what works where, Nick Waugh is a guy that we've seen in a couple different positions throughout camp. Can you just pull back the curtain on what you're evaluating and where you've liked him to this point?
Well, I'll like him anywhere. I like Nick Waugh as a player. He could play right wing. We didn't get a lot with Hurdle there. We've put him back in the middle. Some of that will be dependent on Carly. I think he skated this morning, so that's good news. But we'll have to wait and see. And then, first we thought, we have more depth on the wing guys that have played. Morelli played, Brisson played, Ronberg. Now Lisinski comes into the mix as a center, so we could still move him back there. So there's a little bit of that going on the last few games. Howden's played left wing and center. I think he's played more of both than Nick. Nick's predominantly been a center, so if we are going to move him to the wing, we'll have to try to give him the best chance to play reps there. So I don't know if that'll happen, to be honest. I said I'm used to having him in the middle. It's worked well for us. So that's one we'll keep considering, but probably stay with him in the middle for now.
You think Pearson's going to play all the preseason games?
He's not playing tomorrow, so no, I don't.
Is there
He'll probably go back in Saturday, though. I'll say that. We've got to make a decision on him. I think he's played very well. I think we all like what his resume says. You're balancing that over against, he's a younger guy ahead, and those are the things you have to sort of watch. But I liked his game so far. He's a very predictable player. And I think if you're going to go down in the lineup, that's one that you want on your fourth line, or I always do. Third line, maybe it's a guy that's a little more hit or miss sometimes, I think, because I know that sounds odd from third to fourth, but the way we deploy our fourth line, it's against top personnel. It's to start periods, so those guys have to be very dependable. So, and that's the advantage Pearson has. I'd say Aston Reese has been in the league, but Pearson's won a cup playing that way, so that's what we've liked about him so far.
You mentioned with that role you wanted to carry like Clone. Is Pearson probably the closest as far as physicality?
Yeah, in a carrier like Clone where I mean predictability, right? That he can relish that job. Hey, I'm going to go out. I'm not going to be a 20-minute guy. Might not even be a 15-minute guy. But my 10 to 11, 12 minutes are as valuable as anybody's, and I'm playing against good players every night, and I want to try to wear them down. So that's where Pearson, I think, is very good, and that's where the comparables are. I'm sure they each have their own skill sets, a little more or less in each area, but in general, yes, I think he fits that type of player mold.
That was Bruce Cassidy on Wednesday with the latest pertaining to the VGK roster battles. For more interviews and highlights, visit soundcloud.com/Vegas Golden Knights and follow @VGK Radio Network on X, formerly known as Twitter. For more podcast content, be on the lookout for VGK Today, with new weekly episodes set to begin next week for the upcoming regular season. We'll see you next time on SLGND.